If you recall from the lecture on system databases, we talked about the model database. So in this lecture, we're going to configure our model database to have some standard settings that we want across all the new databases created on this server. Expand system databases, right-click on model, then select properties. On the general page, it gives you an overview of your database. So on the files tab, is where we can make changes to our database files and how we want them to be created. So earlier we talked about the primary file group. This is the primary file group which contains your data, and you have the log file, right, which is not in a file group, and the default size for these databases is 8 megabytes. However, we can change this to say 1024, so this is 1 gig. And your transaction log files normally grow way faster than your databases. So we can set it to an initial size of 5000 megabytes. So this will be dependent on your system. And for the auto growth, select modify, right? We can go in percentage or we can go in megabytes. For the maximum file size, the default is unlimited. So you can change it to limited, right? So I am going to change this to 1024. So whenever this file reaches 1 gigabyte, then no more data will be written to that file. And then select OK. And you can do the same for your transaction log file. However, you may want to cap your transaction log files, because let's say you have 50 databases on an instance, right? And you have a database where the transaction log grows rapidly. Now that one transaction log can fill up all the disk space that is available, assuming you just have one drive, right? And then when that drive fills up, all the databases will be impacted on that machine, and you don't want to have that type of impact in your database environment. So it's better to have one database being impacted rather than having multiple databases being impacted. So it's good to set the maximum files to a limited amount, and over time you'll get an understanding of how your database files grows. So let's say I'm setting this to 10,000. So whenever this file hits 10,000, no more transaction log will be written. And at this point, if you don't clear the transaction log before someone tries to write your database, then the application will scream at you with an error. So it's okay. And here you have the file name that will be stored on the database level. On the options page, you can make changes that you want to apply to all of your database. However, we're not going to change any of these settings however, the default is sufficient for now, so we're not going to make any changes. So select OK. Now I'm going to create an object in the model database that I want to exist on all of my databases. So I'm going to create a small table. Right click on tables, new table. I'm just going to call this test. Select save. And I'm just going to keep it as table 1 for now. Select OK. So that's how you configure your model database to have similar configurations on all newly created database. These changes will not be applied on existing databases that are on the instance. In the next lecture, we'll be going over step by step how you can create a database from scratch.